Hey guys, and welcome back. I'm going to continue the story Western Mars, and today I'm going to read chapter 5. So let's get into it. Those were the days before there were luxurious space liners. Laugh if you will, Mr. Peachy, but they are luxurious. I haven't traveled in them, but I've gone through them at Marsport. When Dory and I came to Mars, passengers were strictly expensive cargo who slept and ate on the center deck with the crew and were told brusquely to stay out of the way if they went north of the center deck. For a modest woman like Dory, the only woman on board on this trip, it was an ordeal. Always at least one crew member was sleeping or relaxing on the center deck, and I had to shield her with a blanket when she dressed or undressed. An inadequate towel was her only screen when she took a shower or went to the toilet. I had feared trouble because my wife would be the only woman aboard among a dozen men on a trip that would last for months. Those fears were groundless. I understand that now women make up an adequate percentage of the crews, but at that time they solved the problem by doctoring the food while aspace. But tensions mount under such conditions, perhaps more so when their main outlet is suppressed. The terrible thing about the trip for me was the deadly monotony. The crewmen had their job, which surprisingly to me kept them busy throughout their duty shifts. Dory, being a woman, was more placid than I, but for me the monotony was torture. You must remember that besides the lack of privacy, our food was doctored too, and we could not have lived as man and wife had we had privacy. Of course, I played cards with the crew, for there was always at least one who was off duty and not sleeping, but I had determined I would do nothing to make Mars as untenable for me as Earth had become, and I resisted the temptation to really gamble with any of them. And gambling for pennies is not card playing to me. The man who came to my rescue at last was the astrogator, a Hawaiian named Kay. With Polynesian perspicacity, he had smuggled a personal supply of liquor aboard against regulations. The other crew members knew he took a nip regularly on off-duty hours, but they never could locate his cache. "Pretty dull, huh, Groundy?" remarked Kay as we played gin rummy with cards that insisted on floating off into the wilds of the gravityless center deck. "Maybe I can pep things up. Ever been drunk in free fall?" "No," I said. "I'm afraid I don't have your foresight." He grinned smugly. "You got to try it once anyhow," he said. "Maybe once will be all you'll want, though, after the hangover hits you. It makes DTs look like a grade B movie. Let's go down to the storage deck." I glanced over at Dory. She was apparently asleep in her bunk. We went below, and Kay broke out a bottle of fair whiskey from a cache behind one of the storage cabinets. He winked at me, cracked the cork, and passed it over. It didn't take long for the liquor to take hold, and I began to realize what Kay meant when he said it was an experience every man should go through once. As you know, when a spaceship is in free fall with no rockets blasting, there is no gravity at all, and you float free in space. To be drunk in free fall is to add the freedom of the alcohol to the freedom of space. You float on rosy clouds, not just mentally but physically. You swim around in nothing, airily deliciously. There's nothing on Earth or Mars like it, because you can experience it only in space. I saw too why Kay would go to the storage deck to drink, even if he hadn't kept his private cache there. On the storage deck, your wild gestures won't hit some vital lever or button, and no one else can hear your ravings. For there's nothing about a space drunk that makes you babble. You talk your head off. You talk your heart out. A space drunk is a good catharsis for all the mental quirks and repressions that have been bothering you, and maybe I needed such a catharsis. Possibly Kay did too. At any rate, we chattered to each other like boyhood chums, telling our dreams, our aspirations, revealing our most secret vices and meannesses. I was not shocked, but duly sympathetic to learn that Kay had knifed his brother to death in his teens and had taken up space service to escape the resulting complications. Beside this revelation of fratricide, my own selfishness and my cold-blooded reasons for marrying Dory seemed tame, but I made it as strong as I could. "She thinks I love her," I shouted, laughing uproariously, and Kay laughed with me. "Think of that! I'm brilliant, hard-headed, practical man, and look at her, nice enough, but washed out, colorless. She's useful, she made me rich. But if I would pick out a woman to fall in love with, well..." Floating in the air as I talked, I had swung around gradually, and now my eyes fell on the companionway to the center deck above us. Dory was clinging to it, and from her expression, I could tell she had heard everything I said about her. Her eyes were enormous from the shock, and her face was as grief-stricken as though I had stabbed her callously through the heart without cause. She turned without a word and left the deck. In my drunken exultation, it seemed funny to me. I laughed about it and made jokes about it to Kay. I felt quite smart and heartless. Later, during the hangover, it didn't seem so funny, but on the other hand, I was so miserable I didn't care one way or the other. Dory spoke of it to me only once, and that was just before we blasted down to Mars in the G-boat. She looked at me levelly and said, without a trace of emotions, "I hate you, Samlan. Always remember that." So guys, that was the end of chapter 5. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in my next video reading chapter 6. So stay tuned. Bye. Hey guys, and welcome back. I'm going to continue the story Westro Mars, and today I'm going to read chapter 5. So let's get into it.